welcome back to another lesson in the PodClass. I hope you've been finding the other videos helpful so far. The one you're about to watch is me taking you through the initial edits of a 1 minute remaining podcast episode. So I'll take you through how I fit some narration that I've written into the episode, and also along the way finding out that, maybe this is narration that I wrote doesn't really fit, so we rewrite it. We look at storytelling, how I weave in extra bits of audio and information in regarding to the prison this gentleman is in, because this is a prison interview that I'm working into a story. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hope you enjoy it. This is an episode that I'm working on as part of 1 minute remaining, my other podcast. As you can see, it was sort of slowly in the stages of building this particular episode. But this is a good example of where I've written narration for the episode, sort of dropped in the pieces, slotted in some of the interview, and I'm sort of working out that, it doesn't quite fit with what I want it to be. So essentially this will be the very first episode of a discussion with a gentleman who's incarcerated, and the way all of my stories work is we start off with the background. So again, that beginning, middle, and end. So this is the very first episode talking about his origin story, essentially, where he's from, how he grew up, all that sort of stuff. So a lot of it's quite dry, and not like super exciting. This story in itself isn't overly crazy. Like in the other one we've been editing where the guy stole £100 million. This guy is, sad to say, just a run-of-the-mill murder situation within the United States. So he says it's a self-defense case. So obviously people are fascinated by the case and what had happened, but I like to do a bit more than that, obviously give a bit of a backstory of this person. So, but I've got to still make it interesting and got to make it, make people want to stick around. So what I've got here is the start of the show. So we'll just hear it how it starts. This is just the general opener for the show, the opening music. Make sure it's not too loud. I'm always adjusting levels and things as I go as well, but then essentially it goes off to my audio guy, Dom, who polishes it to really beautiful levels, which you, of course, don't need to do. I'm just very lucky to have someone like Dom working on the show with me. But anyway, you can do it all yourself, really. Hello, and welcome back to 1 Minute Remaining. My name is Jack Lawrence, the host and creator of this show. Today, we travel for the first time to the state of New Jersey to speak with a man housed in the infamous New Jersey State Prison, once called Trenton Prison.
This is a Global Tellink prepaid call from
Robert Johnson,
an inmate at the New Jersey State Prison.
Now you'll see here, it's not just, I could just do an opener where I go with just me talking, narration straight into telling the story. But again, I like to give that light and shade. The opener for me is kind of setting it up, as in, that prison environment, what he was convicted of, drawing people in. So it's like, okay, this is coming. This is what's coming. So we give that little intro from the prison. Then there's a little grab from him talking about what he was convicted of.
I originally got arrested for a murder charge. Then when I got indicted on a murder charge, they added an attempted murder charge, and I got sentenced to 60 years, 20 years with an 85% for the attempted murder charge, and 40 years with an 85% for the murder charges. And so far, I've been incarcerated for over the last 17 years up to this point.
New Jersey State Prison is home to arguably some of the worst criminals America has seen, including a number of serial killers such as Charles Cullen, Frank Massini, and the late Richard Kuklinski.
How many people have you killed?
So again, adding a little bit colour, so it's not just narration. I found just a little grab from with this Richard Kuklinski, who'd been interviewed in prison, using a very, very short grab just to illustrate him, the late Richard Kuklinski.
How many people have you killed?
An approximate guess. Approximate, we'll go with more than 100.
However, the gentleman I speak with today is no serial killer. Although convicted of murder, it's a crime he says was in self-defense. So I'm pretty happy with that. That's the second iteration I created of that. the first iteration basically didn't have this section here where he's talking about what he was convicted of. It simply went straight from this piece of audio to me talking about the prison that he's in. But I had this section placed down here and it just didn't fit. Just didn't sound right. So I thought I'll just chuck that at the start. It was also a lot longer and I've trimmed it down to the what we need. Like this was the original piece that I had.
My name is Sean Robert Johnson, and I'm currently incarcerated at New Jersey State Prison in Trenton, New Jersey. And I originally got arrested for a murder charge. Then when I got indicted on a murder charge, they added an attempted murder charge. I got 2 gun charges for each charge.
So there's just a lot of detail in his original recording of what he got charged for, which goes for over a minute, like a minute 20, which for an opener is way too long. And we don't need all that information anyway. We just needed this section of it where he says what he was charged with murder, what he got sentenced to, and how long he spent in prison so far. So we chopped down that minute to like, I don't know, 30 seconds maybe, 40 seconds. So yeah, so that's the opener, which I'm pretty happy with at the moment. I don't mind that. Again, this isn't really an audition tutorial. So, but if you have any questions about anything that I do and you're using Audition, feel free to ask, and I'll try and help you. Now this is just me extending the opener because otherwise it would end before I finish what I'm saying, and I always obviously like to finish with the crescendo at the end of that music. So I literally just do a little.
Oh, an approximate guess.
There is literally nothing technical about this whatsoever. I literally just pull it like that. It sort of
Approximate guess.
seems to work.
Approximate will go.
Anyway, and then we finish on this. And I also like to start the show with a little bit of a breath with some music coming in. Now, don't be afraid of silence or areas where there is no talking. Give the audience a chance to breathe. Give them a chance to reset. Give them a chance to get ready. Because if we just went straight from that to this, I spent 1 year in. So what? Hold on. So something's coming. We're building with a little bit of music here, and then we come in. I spent 1 year in solitary confinement once, and I made it my goal not to ever go back there again. So basically this guy is a prison journalist, so I had a read some of his journalism that he's written, found an interesting piece that he wrote about going to solitary confinement. I thought that was a nice way to start it, because again, I like to set things up. I could go straight into his story, but I want to kind of set the scene, that remind everyone that we are in a prison environment here. This guy is serving time for murder. It's an element we haven't really covered yet, solitary confinement. We've spoken about with other prisoners, but this guy goes into real detail about what he was in solitary confinement for, the conditions of solitary confinement. So I just grabbed a section of it, which I thought was a nice way to start. At the moment, it's reasonably lengthy, but I don't mind it because of its content. And it gives us time to breathe, time to get ready. You'll see here these gaps as well. I like to sort of really add a bit of depth with silence, so it's not just all running in one. When I actually recorded this, there was very little breaths between, so I fixed that up later. I spent 1 year in solitary confinement once, and I made it my goal not to ever go back there again. Solitary confinement is a form of incarceration in which a person is kept alone in a cell, isolated from the general population, with limited to no privileges. For 12 consecutive months in 2013 and 14, I was imprisoned in this way. My path to this punishment began on September the 14th, 2013. So anyway, so that goes on and on and on, and then we get to the very end, and you are allowed 1 visit per month, as well as only $15 for commissary once a month. These are the words of Sean Robert Johnson, taken from an article called "I Became an Entrepreneur in Solitary Confinement." Sean is a contributing writer for the prisonwriters.com website and has certainly accomplished a lot in the time he has spent incarcerated. But of course, before we explore all of that, we first need to find out just how he ended up in one of America's most notorious prisons, convicted of murder. Again, a nice little end to this, giving people some time,
let the music fade out, and then we roll straight into him because I've had way too much of me already.
I grew up in Asbury Park, New Jersey. Partially, I lived in Neptune, New Jersey, and Neptune City, New Jersey. But majority of my life from...
So, of course, now he's talking about his origins, where he grew up, where he lived. So what I've done here, because it kind of goes on a bit, and again, you want to keep people's interest, I'm letting this roll out for a little bit because I come in here with another question at some point in this section.
Time I was born to a community, so what we call the hood. Asbury went to Asbury Park, New Jersey.
And what was life like growing up as a youngster in that area?
Well, it's an urban community, so what we call...
So he talks, and I like, you probably would have heard of this on other shows, and I'm not reinventing the wheel here. I'm just taking bits that I like from other shows and incorporating them in my shows. There is a saying that I really like. It's great artists, was it? Bad artists copy, good artists steal. I think that's it. I may be butchering that completely. But anyway, so I'm just stealing ideas from other people and using it in my own show. So again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I build shows that I enjoy listening to. I didn't come up with this way of doing podcasts. I've heard plenty of other people doing it this way, and I really love listening to those podcasts, so I'm going to make those podcasts. So what a lot of people I've heard in the past do is that they'll have someone talking and then they slowly fade it out and narration kind of takes over, and I really like that effect, so I'll use that in my episodes, and I use that here. It's also a good way of getting some of their story without people getting too sort of lost in the detail, so you let it run just enough.
My family faced throughout my childhood years, growing up into my teenage years. I think one of my main outlets that I always tried to utilize to keep my mind away from all of that was playing sports, mainly playing basketball.
Sean has two siblings, one older and one younger, and his parents were and still are married to this day. His family were always... So again, it just breaks it up for you. So you get that fade out. They're still hearing him talking quietly in the background. We're adding the narration, filling in the gaps, probably shrinking down what he's saying by a fair amount, and then we'll come back into him in a second. Close-knit. They essentially lived their own lives, but were always a solid family unit and had each other's backs. So no real issues at home, so to speak of. Just the everyday struggles of a family dealing with living in an impoverished neighborhood. Sean did okay at school. Like most kids, he says he could have applied himself a bit better, but he did okay.
The school systems in Asbury is nothing compared to...
I just want to fix that because you can kind of hear me come in, which sounds a bit weird. If I was going to have me coming in, it would have to be asking a question that he's going to answer coming up. So applied himself a bit better, but he did okay.
The school system...
He could have applied himself a bit better, but he did okay.
The school systems in Asbury...
Because it just sounds weird if you hear my voice underneath and then all of a sudden he comes in. Yeah, it just wouldn't work. So anyway...
is nothing compared to...
So again, we have him, me asking another question.
A good student, would you say, or, not really that interested in school?
What I might do here is actually add a little bit of music. So I like to have sections, obviously, without music. You don't want to overdo it because it can get exhausting for people to listen to with constant music. So we've had this nice big chunk of music here. Then we'll have it coming sort of cold here. And then I might have some music coming again here. Better. But he did okay.
The school systems in Asbury is nothing compared to the surrounding towns.
Now, when it comes to choosing music, it's kind of, you just got to go with feel, what you feel it needs.
Say, or, not really. Were you sort of a good student, would you say, or, any aspirations for growing up, what you wanted to do?
So let's, so for music, I use Epidemic Sound, not sponsored. But it's just got a good little selection of music. You can use there's heaps of different ones. There's also what is it? I can't remember the name of the other one. Oh no, Slipstream. That's right. Slipstream's another one that you can find music from. But so it's literally just a case of
I got A's and B's.
Earing it. So we'll earing it with your ears. None of these really make sense to me. You don't want epic. That's definitely not. Laid back, no. Quirky, no. Maybe sentimental, because we're talking about his past. I also like to go for None of those. Usually it says orchestral or whatever it says. Anyway, let's have a little squeeze through. Nope, definitely not. I kind of just know when I hear it. No. This part takes a while. You know, this is the real lengthy. Don't hate that. It's a little bit too sad. Good thing about this is we can play this while we don't have to download it. We can just play this at the same time. Were you sort of a good student, would you say, or, you know, not really that interested in school?
I would say a little bit of both. I was a good student to the point that I always did my homework. I got A's.
No, that doesn't work. We may cut here and come back to when I found it, because this can take a while.
A's and B's. But then I would say not interested because a lot of the work in my age group, I think I was school here and there.
Did you have, you know, any aspirations for growing up, what you wanted to do with your life?
The two main aspirations I always had was
He had desires to be like his friends from the suburbs. They had a life that he wanted. Okay, so the music for me is not, and this will happen, is not hitting the spot at the moment because I'm not sure if this section really warrants music, just because of what he's talking about. There's nothing really. But we do have a section coming up where he starts talking about getting into selling drugs, which we can definitely use the music there. But my narration isn't right, so we need to fix that on the fly.
all my life. Like I said, that was my outlet. But on the flip, I was trying to develop businesses and all that. So like that's how my mind always been.
Right, so he's talking about being an entrepreneur, and then we talk about how the fact that he got to a point in his life when he was young and he wanted stuff that he didn't have, that his friends had. So he decided to start hustling on the streets, and that meant selling drugs. So I have got a bit of narration here that I wrote. Sean did okay at school. Like most kids, he says he could have applied himself a bit better, but he did okay. No, that's not the right bit. This is it. Sean was getting on with life, but says that eventually, as a youngster, he had desires to be like his friends from the suburbs. They had a life that he wanted. They had things. So I've decided to change that because we're talking about him being an entrepreneur, and then he talks about selling drugs. So I'm just going to reword it. So as he mentions, he's always had an entrepreneur. Please ignore the spelling. As we mentioned, he's always had an entrepreneurial spirit, even from a young age. However, that drive to make money and be successful when he was just 11 years old meant that he'd end up hustling on the streets of New Jersey. And when you're hustling in the hood, it's drugs that tend to be the quickest and easiest way to make money. So that's what we're going to do instead. So we just quickly get a new file here. I'm terrible with my filing system and calling things by certain things. As you'll see, there's a lot of just untitles. But anyway, I would be better if I were you at calling things the right name. Save you heartache when you need to find things, which often happens to me. As he mentions, he's always had an entrepreneurial spirit, even from a young age. However, that drive to make money and be successful when he was just 11 years old meant he would end up hustling on the streets of New Jersey. And when you're hustling in the hood, it's drugs that tend to be the quickest and easiest way to make money. Sweet, so that'll do. As he mentions, he's always up the volume a bit on that. Back to our multi-track, get our extra narration. We'll get rid of this piece. And we'll get here. So what we'll probably do...
My mind always been.
A little gap there. I'm going to put these two... I left a gap here because I thought that music would round out that, but it won't.
8 years, started skipping school here and there.
Did you have, any aspirations for growing up? Okay, so we're talking dealing drugs in the hood. So let's get some music for that. So definitely don't want sentimental. Let's go for mysterious, maybe. Can be very tricky. Look, you'll see all these ones I've downloaded. A lot of the time I'll reuse tracks in episodes because it just takes so long to find good ones. And then when you find good one, it's like, you got to be careful that you don't overuse it. I probably overuse a lot of the ones I get. So this is a good one. I don't mind that one. Try and find something I haven't used though. What you want to do is, it might sound great at the start, but make sure you always skip ahead to these bigger sections because it'll suddenly kick in with a big like, you're like, that doesn't really fit. See, that doesn't fit. That's like some sort of Tom Cruise movie. I've downloaded a lot of these, haven't I? This is again why you really need multiple subscriptions because you'll just keep going and hearing the same ones all the time. No, that doesn't work. I've obviously downloaded this one, but there's a reason to that. I also like ones with this big crescendo at the moment. So if they say something that's like really shocking, obviously, finding a nice big end to it is kind of cool. So they're like, and then all of a sudden I found out he planted the drugs. And then you have that. Anyway, that's not in this particular scenario right now, though. Oh, I love this one too. It's very American-esque. All right, let's go. The singers, these are all ones I've downloaded before. Let's go to my folder here and let's just search and see what we've got and just try and find something to chuck in. Get rid of that now. Okay, what have we got? Mystery Unfold. What does that sound like? Yeah, I've used this one a lot. That's the problem. I like it. No, that's no good. It's not for this scenario. It's not for this scenario either. Definitely not. Maybe let's try putting that in. Okay. This is why these episodes take so long to put together, as you can see.
Like I said, my mentality of trying to develop businesses and all that. So like that's how my mind always been.
Have that break again. Give people time getting ready. What's coming next? Fade it out. As he mentions, he's always had an entrepreneurial spirit, even from a young age. However, that drive to make money and be successful when he was just 11 years old meant he would end up hustling on the streets of New Jersey. And when you're hustling in the hood, it's drugs that tend to be the quickest and easiest way to make money.
A lot of us mindsets, I can specifically talk about me, is about, all right, how am I going to obtain money in order to have what I have? You a kid, you want to be able to have what everybody else has, especially when you lacking or you have friends that's in the suburban communities that live around Asbury and you hanging out with them and you see how they living. It's like, yo, I actually want to be able to have the same type of material things they have. So that right there at an early age led me to venture into the streets. So now I'm in the streets, I'm out there selling drugs, hustling, and that's where that point of my life took on a life of its own.
Were you finding yourself now sort of in the sights of...
We need to up this volume here. That's quiet.
Were you finding yourself now sort of in the sights of law enforcement while you were doing that?
Like being out there, it's like you out there, you trying to make money, and you're definitely trying to duck the police, or you're definitely not trying to go to jail. But you automatically become on the radar because it's like I tell people looking.
So although I've gone through this and edited this and trimmed it down, I'm now also going back through it again to listen and go, okay, is this too much? Do we need to trim anything out of this? Is there stuff in there we don't need?
And back at that part of my life in hindsight is you initially go out there to sell drugs. And out there, it's like you out there, you trying to make money, and you definitely trying to duck the police, or you definitely not trying to go to jail. But you automatically become on the radar because it's like I tell.
Okay, so I can already hear that we don't need this section here. We can trim this down. So I'm going to put a quick cut in
Like
there.
being out there, it's like you out there, you trying to make money, and you definitely trying to duck the police, or you definitely not trying to go to jail. But you automatically become on the radar because it's like I tell people.
Law enforcement while you were doing that?
You automatically become on the radar because it's like I tell people looking back at that part of my life in hindsight is you initially go out there to sell drugs, whatever type of drug you selling, and it's to make money, to better your situation. This is what we tell ourselves, right? People that I know that have been in similar situations. However, we tell ourselves.
So again, we don't need this. We can just say that's what we tell ourselves. Straight to the next bit.
We tell ourselves. However, you don't realize that once you get out there, there's so much other stuff that comes with it. So now it's like, okay, you might be out here making money, but the same way as you in the streets that's trying to make money, you got another person that's going through a similar struggle, but he might not sell drugs. He might be a stick-up kid. So now you got to watch out for that. So all this leads into a lot of other stuff where you definitely could potentially be on the radar of the law enforcement. And I'm quite sure, like, probably for selling drugs was I on the radar? No. Probably for other things in the midst of me being out there that came with it? Probably yes.
Sean's first experience of incarceration would come when he found himself in juvenile detention. Not once, but twice. What sort of age did you sort of start selling this stuff?
I would say about 14 up into I got incarcerated at 19. So that was just my main thing of my way that I thought at that time, like, yo, this is how I'm going to make money to have what I have. But in between that age time, I actually got arrested twice and went to like the juvenile time.
See, I can probably get rid of all that and go straight to, because a lot of the time my issue is I'm like, oh, I need this episode to hit 30 minutes, and then I'll just leave stuff in to try and make it hit 30 minutes. But that is not the mentality you should have. Less is more. So I should mentally, and I'm still working on this myself, is I should be like, well, you know what? I'd rather have a really punchy, fascinating episode that's 20 minutes or 23 minutes as opposed to an episode that's 30 minutes in it long with bits in it that people are going to get bored with. So I didn't explain. I like to have spaces and breaths between things. So I'll sometimes, if the music bed allows for it, I'll just have it come up slightly in volume.
Probably yes.
Give us a break. And back from Sean's first experience of incarceration would come when he found himself in juvenile detention. I need to fix that too, as you can see here. That's a dodgy. Sean's first experience of incarceration would come when he found himself in juvenile detention. So I need to fix that. Not once, but twice. Also, again, we don't have to go straight from that straight into not once, but twice. Give people a chance. Give their ears a chance to get ready, because, again, you can lose people. They can zone out and they'll be like, hold on, where are we? Once, but twice. Give them a chance to set.
I actually got arrested twice and went to like the juvenile.
This looks like it'll work perfect too.
One time for 3 months, and then they sent me to like the juvenile residential program. And then the second time, it ended up being, I think, a total 16 or 18 months. I went to the juvenile detention center. Then they sent me down to what they call over here JRAC. That's like the reception center for juveniles. And then I was down there for a couple of months, and he sent me down to Jamesburg, what is considered like the juvenile prison over here. Then I actually went to a boot camp for there before I went home.
I'm assuming that's over drugs. You were caught selling drugs, is that correct?
No, actually it wasn't. I have not ever got caught selling drugs.
Oh, right, okay.
That's the surprising thing.
Yeah, right.
I have not ever got caught selling drugs. I actually always got caught being with other people and getting involved in what...
So I know the rest of it's all fine now, so we'll just hear how it ends.
He got caught, ended up telling on everybody else that was involved. So that's how I got arrested on the first time.
Let it end. And they gave you a juvenile detention for that?
Yeah, it took me there, so I was there for a couple of months. Then I ended up getting sentenced to a juvenile program, which I went to. It was called Mariner Woods, and it's out in South Jersey. So I went out there for a couple of months. I think I was there for like 6 months. It was like a little juvenile residential program. You go through like different stuff out there. They teach you how to do different things in order to be better, make better decision making, anger management programs, and all that. So once I completed that program, they released me from there, and then I went home.
What was your parents' reaction to you being arrested?
I never asked them specifically, but I will probably say disappointment, knowing that the gifts that I had when it comes to sports and academically I always succeeded in doing school. I know that regardless of the struggle, they had higher expectations for me.
So they never disciplined you themselves over you being arrested? Like, your dad didn't come down on you and was like, what are you...
Love it is like through visit days and ask me like, yo, you know better, you should have had them conversations.
So what was the juvenile...
Do that in your life.
So, okay, so we're there, he's talking about juvenile. Then this section I go on to ask him what juvenile was like. I don't know if we need it. Let's see.
In your life. So we definitely had them conversations.
He's back in juvenile for violating his parole. So this is where I need to work out what we're doing here. So
Better you should be doing.
I'm going to need to go to the original interview here and see where we're at.
Expectations for me. He got caught, ended up.
What was the juvenile...
It was like you.
Right, okay. You get done the first time for the vandalism. What was the second thing you did to get yourself back? What was the second thing you did to get yourself back?
The second time.
What was the second thing you did to get yourself... So I don't think we need all of this either, so I just need to set it up better. So...
It was like you
Hey, was it, you know... How long did he say he spent in there?
there, and then I went home,
What...
which I went to.
Detention for that.
So I was there for a couple of months. Then I ended up getting sentenced to a juvenile program,
2 months.
which I went to. It was called Mariner Woods, and it's out in South Jersey. So I went out there for a couple of months. I think I was there for like 6 months. It was like a little juvenile residential program. You go through like different stuff out there. They teach you how to do different things in order to be better, make better decision making, anger management programs, and all that. So once I completed that program, they released me from there, and then I went home.
So I think he just did 6. I mean, he's either done 6 or 8 months.
Took me there, so I was there for a couple of months. Then I ended up getting sentenced to a juvenile program.
No, yeah, okay, I think it's on top, so 6. So let's say 8 months. So he spends 8 months juvenile detention. Let's get our narration back here. Where's this section? Incarceration. So he finds himself back in juvenile detention, violating his parole. Okay, so this is where spends 8 months all up in a facility. He says was really. So he says it's like a little fun camp. Sean spends 8 months all in a facility. He says, in his own words, I may even have him come in and say it's a bit of a fun camp. Insert his remarks there. So Sean spends 8 months. Sean, maybe I'll say, no, hang on. So instead of saying Sean spends 8 months all up in the facility, he says, Sean's now locked up for the first time. In facility, he says in his own words, was ... fun camp. Spends 8 months completing the necessary programs. Place for juveniles. And he's back home. But it wouldn't be long till he was shipped off. Again. Back in juvenile. For violating his parole. Okay, great. So we can pick it up from there. So I don't have to re-record the whole thing. I'm just re-recording the top here. I'll just watch my inflections so I can just attach it on. So, again, another audio file. See, all these, this, ignore the filing system. There is none. Okay. You do a better filing system than I do. Okay, so Sean's now locked up for the first time. Say fought. I nearly messed myself. For the first time in a facility, he says, Sean's now locked up for the first time in a facility. He says, in his own words, he spends 8 months in the fun camp completing the necessary programs they have in place for juveniles. And he's back home. But it wouldn't be long till he's shipped off again, back to juvenile, for violating his parole. Sean's now locked up for the first time. Say fought. Sean's now locked up for the first time in a facility. Sean's now locked up for the first time. Sean's now locked up for the first time. Sean, now locked up for the first time, is having to spend... Sean's now locked up for the first time in his life. Now, for the first time in his young life, Sean is locked up. That's better. Go with that. Now, see, sometimes we just go over these things on the fly. If they just don't sound right. Now, for the first time in his young life, Sean is locked up. He spends 8 months. Let's go like that. Now, for the first time in his young life, Sean is locked up. He spends 8 months in the fun camp completing the necessary programs they have in place for juveniles. And he's back home. But it wouldn't be long till he's shipped off again back to juvenile for violating his parole. Hold on. What have I done here?
It is like
Now, for the first time in his young life, Sean is locked up. He spends 8 months in the fun camp completing... He spends 8 months... I've messed up there. Sean's now locked up for the first time. Sean, now, for the first time in his young life, is locked up in a facility he says, in his own words, he would spend 8 months in the fun camp completing the necessary programs they have in place for juveniles. And then he's back home. But it's not long till he's shipped off again, back to juvenile. Sean's now locked up for the first time. Sean, now, for the first time in his young life, Sean, now, for the first time in his young life, is locked up in a facility he says, in his own words, he would spend 8 months in the fun camp completing the necessary programs they have in place for juveniles. And then he's back home. But it's not long. Now, I don't always take all the breaths, but sometimes I do some pretty ridiculous, like, so I did take those things out. But it's not long till he's shipped off again, back to juvenile. Ah, my inflection's wrong there. Idiot. Back. Back to juvenile for violating his parole. Back to juvenile for violating his parole. Back to juvenile for violating his parole. Watch your inflections, people. Back to juvenile. Back till he's shipped off again. Back to juvenile for violating his parole. Gotta have that droll voice for everybody who's listening at home. It's the way we do it in crime. Okay, so let's go here.
visit days and ask me like, yo, you know better, you should be doing better because you can do this in your life, you can do that in your life. So we definitely had them conversations.
Sean, now, for the first time in his young life, is locked up in a facility he says, in his own words, was... Let's put it there. This time he's afforded... Shut up. Wrong one, where are you? So what was the juvenile detention? Here we go. Detention center nice?
No, you gonna have your fights no matter where you're at. It's like a little fun camp.
There we go. Dang. So out of all of that big thing there where we're talking about the juvenile detention, we're going to use this tiny little snippet. So this is where you've got to learn that you don't need everything. So instead of talking about, basically he says that it was a fun camp, they could have pizza and stuff if their parents bought pizza for everybody and, snacks and whatever parents bought stuff that we don't need, really. It just makes no difference. If it was, the sad thing is, if it was brutal and there was beatings and all the rest of it, we'd put that in. But first time in his young life, he's locked up in a facility he says, in his own words, was...
It's kind of like a little fun camp.
He would spend 8 months in the fun camp, completing the necessary programs they have in place for juveniles. And then he's back home. But it's not long till he's shipped off again, back to juvenile for violating his parole. He's back in juvenile for violating his parole. He was caught smoking weed till he's shipped off again. Back to juvenile. We don't need that bit. Let's just go straight for this to this. This might work, might not. Till he's shipped off again for violating his parole. He was caught smoking weed and as a result missed a court date for his probation. And it was back off to juvenile detention. However, this time he's afforded the opportunity to attend a boot camp. Okay, so that works better. Put a gap there because we're going to get him talking about boot camps, and then this is where I will talk to people about what boot camps are. So giving, again, a break from the story, we're then going to move to talking about boot camps and how boot camps work, because we don't have them here in Australia anymore. We used to, but a bit of a history of boot camps. For juvenile detentions, we'll get some audio from online, from some news stories around boot camp. There's also a story in that narration about a youngster who died in a boot camp and how they were shut down in Florida because of that. So we're taking the listener on a bit of a different journey now. So we're sort of, this is, our story sort of going like this, and then we're going to go, we're going to go over here, this story, and come back to our story again. So it's all connected though, but it's, keeps people, it's not just the one thing for half an hour talking about the same stuff. It's sort of, adding in light and shade and all that sort of stuff.
Conversations.
Sean, now, for the first time in his... Okay, so we'll go to Sean talking about boot camps. So what was the juvenile detention center?
Probation. I was on probation. I ended up being 24 months that they gave me. I ended up doing like 16 months.
So, and then did you say at some point you do a boot camp as well?
Yeah, I went to the boot camp at the end. So I went to the same juvenile, facility for like 2 months, and then they sent me down to, like I said, the reception center, which is J-Rack. And you down there, that's like where you want to get classified, whether you want to go to Jamesburg or whether you want to go to a residential program in May of 2000.
And these boot camp things, is that the military style boot camp?
Well, it's military style, but what they do is, at that point in time, they had like a lot of correctional them came and worked there, and then what they learned in black entities.
Did you find the boot camp?
They, actually like black and us, so that's why we went through the boot camp phase.
All right, so we're going to take this section here.
I went to the same juvenile.
He's afforded the opportunity to attend a boot camp.
So I went to the same juvenile facility for like 2 months, and then they sent me down to, like I said, the reception center, which is J-Rack. And you down there, that's like where you want to get classified, whether you want to go to Jamesburg or whether you want to go to a residential program. So it was holding me down there trying to get me in a program, but you normally don't stay down there that long, so I was down there for about 3 months. So they automatically just sit me down Jamesburg by default.
Okay,
so
well, this
about
is, we don't need any of this.
2 months into being down Jamesburg, you want to get classified, whether you want to go to Jamesburg or whether you want to go to a residential program. So it was holding me down there trying to get me in a program, but you normally don't stay down there that long, so I was down there for about 3 months. so they automatically just sent me down Jamesburg by default. So about maybe 2 months in, right? And you down there, that's like where you're going to get classified, whether you're going to go to Jamesburg or whether you're going to go to a residential program. So about maybe 2 months into being down Jamesburg, a program finally accepted me. So I did an interview to be in a boot camp, and then I left maybe within a month after me seeing them down Jamesburg. And I went to the boot camp for like the next 6.5, 7 months. And I ultimately went home from there in May of 2006.
Okay, so a lot of stuff in there we don't need.
Like I said, the reception center, which is JRAC, and you can juvenile facility for like 2 months.
Gonna get rid of all that.
Facility for like 2 months. So about maybe 2 months into being down Jamesburg, a program finally accepted me. So I did an interview.
Still makes sense. There's a lot of information that we just don't need in there that, you know, general public, it means nothing to them. So we just go straight from, yeah, and it still makes sense him talking about being 2 months, and then after 2 months he's moved.
Went to the same juvenile facility for like 2 months. So about maybe 2 months into being down Jamesburg, a program finally accepted me. So I did an interview to be in a boot camp. And then I left maybe within a month after me seeing them down Jamesburg. And I went to the boot camp for like the next in a boot camp. And then I left maybe within finally accepted me. So I did an interview to be in a boot camp.
Okay, cut there.
And then I left maybe within a month after me seeing them down Jamesburg. And I went to the boot camp.
Okay, so again, that Jamesburg stuff is irrelevant, not necessary. Straight to this.
Be in a boot camp. And I went to the boot camp for like the next 6.5, 7 months, and I ultimately went home from there in May of 2006.
And these boot camp things, is that the military style boot camp where it's very much run by by the military?
Well, it's military style, but what they do is at that point in time they had like a lot of correctional officers that was either in the military or the army, and they extract them from doing like the regular CO jobs in prisons, whatever, and they actually can work there. So a lot of them came and worked there, and then what they learned in boot camps and the military and all that, they tried to instill that type of discipline and all that in us. So that's why we went through the boot camp phase.
Right, and this is where we're going to go into talking about boot camps and what they are. This is where we're going to have some music come in. Yeah, that's boot camp.
And all that in us. So that's why we went through the boot camp phase.
Real Arizona style. The first boot camps appeared in the states of Georgia.
Boot camp phase.
The first boot camps appeared in the states of Georgia and Oklahoma around 1983. Boot camps are intended to be less restrictive than prison, but harsher than probation. All right, we're going to leave a bit of a gap here, so it's not just rolling from one bit to the other. Than probation. In most US, it doesn't have to be much. It doesn't be a huge gap. I mean, you can do too much. I mean, like, okay, but just nice little bit of a probation. In most US states, participation in boot camp programs is offered to young first-time offenders in the place of prison terms or probation. In some states, a youth could also be sentenced to participate in such a program. Okay, we'll spread this out a little bit. Now, the reason I'm getting rid of this section here is just so in case there's any breath or anything like that that are in there that I don't want, so I keep it clean. Right. The time served can range from 90 to 180 days, which can make up for prison sentences of up to 10 years. We're also going to find some audio as well to support this, so it's not just me talking for the next few minutes. We'll have, because I know there'll be reports on this stuff. Years. In 1995, the US federal government and about 2/3 of the 50 states were operating boot camps. Presently, however, there are no statistics as to how many of these boot camps are operating in the US, although in the year 2000, there was reportedly around 51 of them still open. Now, I think at this point, we talk about the incident that happened in Florida. State-run boot camps were banned in Florida. Yeah, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump on a YouTube, good old YouTube, and see what we can find on US boot camp. Juveniles. Okay. Troubled teens. Inside America's toughest boot camp. I would like a news article. I don't like to take things that aren't news. Here we go. I think I've used this before, but this is fine. This is... now, a lot of people say, can I or can I not use audio from other shows? I never take anything from documentaries. No. News, like this, I think it's a CBS news thing that happened or anything like that. You can take little snippets from, because you can argue fair use. Fair use means that you're talking about the subject and it's being used in a fair way. It's a very grey area, but I've been doing it for a while, and touch wood, it's not been an issue. But again, I don't take things that are documentaries, anything from movies, anything from Netflix shows, anything like that. I don't touch. So I only ever touch news stuff, anything that's from a news article, as like a news station of some form. I'll use snippets of.
Good evening, and welcome to a special edition of CBS 4 News. I'm investigator Jim DeFeeti. In local news, we spend a lot of time talking about crime and occasionally punishment. But tonight, we're going to go in depth and talk about rehabilitation. Is it possible? Over the next 30 minutes, we are going to take you inside the last remaining boot camp in the state of Florida. CBS 4 News spent 4 months following one class of cadets, a collection of carjackers and burglars and armed robbers. Some will embrace this last chance, others will not. For those who graduate, only 11% will be rearrested within a year. But that's a long way away. For now, they just have to survive day one.
Get them off that bus, Lord! Let's go! Let's go!
It's 4 a.m. and the first class of 2014 has arrived at the Miami-Dade County Boot Camp.
Sir, yes, sir! If you move, you're going to say something. Understand that? Sir, yes, sir! You understand that? Sir, yes, sir! I said, what? Sir, yes, sir!
There are 38 cadets on the bus, ranging in age from 16 to 24.
We going to do it my way, or we going to do it my way? There ain't no other way. Understand that? Sir, yes, sir!
They have all pled guilty to a myriad of crimes and face sentences of up to 15 years in prison.
Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Hey, hurry up! Get off the bus!
But the judges who sentenced them offered them one last reprieve: complete the boot camp program, and they won't have to go to prison.
I can't hear you! I can't hear you!
Okay, let's slide forward a fair bit here. Just looking
From
nice.
guards to the parents they never had.
Nice little short grabs.
Contain my anger and contain my self-control in this place as long as I did shows a lot about what these people do here. And they talk to us, they yell at us, but nobody sees the behind-the-scenes act when they talk to us and give us words of encouragement.
For some, the drill instructors transitioned from guards to the parents they never had.
They beat on us, but I realized the difference between picking on me and trying to help me.
One person who failed to make that connection was Andino. The cadet had finally run out of second chances.
Mr. Adino refused, Your Honor, to comply with the instructions and orders for the program.
Not even halfway through the program, Andino has had enough. After refusing orders and threatening staff, the drill instructors decided it was time for him to get on that bus for state prison. On this day, they were updating the judge that granted him boot camp.
Your client is potentially facing some very serious consequences.
Flunking out of boot camp meant he would have to serve the remainder of his 6-year sentence in state prison. We caught up to him a couple of weeks later inside the jail, where he was waiting to be transferred to state custody. Once you got out of boot camp and once they brought you here,
yeah, I felt stupid.
You realized you made a mistake.
I felt stupid because, I know what I traded out. I traded out some months for some years.
Andino said he couldn't handle being disrespected by the drill instructors and forced to endure some of the physical punishments, like crawling through the pit.
At the moment, it's like my mind's just, I want to escape. I want to get out of here. I want to get out of here. I want to get out of here. And when I had the time to sit there and they brought me back to the jail and I had the time to sit there and really think about it, I felt stupid because I I gave it all up. I gave my freedom up. I let a lot of people down. You know what I mean? For nothing.
Okay, we might use a little bit of that. We'll just grab one more here, so we're not using all from the same. That's the other thing I like to do is try and grab from multiple sources, so we're not just taking one from an entire thing.
At Cunard, we strive to deliver the highest standards at sea, blending luxury with exceptional...
In the beginning, it's like this. It's a little crazy. You look genuinely angry and annoyed.
I do love Louis Theroux, but I can't take anything from this. Do we have anything else here news-wise? My internet's being bloody slow, but we'll come to that. We'll come back anyway. We'll just get this chopped up quickly.
Graduate, only 11% will be real.
Definitely using this bit.
14 has arrived at the Miami. There are 38 cadets on the. There are 38 cadets in the first class of 2008 Dade County Boot Camp. There are 38 cadets on the bus, ranging in age from...
Again, you want to chop this down?
There are 38 cadets on the bus, ranging...
We gonna do it my way? Understand that.
They have all pled guilty to a myriad 18 to 24. They have all pled guilty to a myriad of crimes and face sentences of up to 15 years in prison. It's 4 a.m.
Okay, let's go.
It's 4 a.m. and the first class of 2014 has arrived at the Miami-Dade County Boot Camp. There are 38 cadets on the bus, ranging in age from 16 to 24. They have all pled guilty to a myriad.
Okay, so we'll go here. 2000. There was reportedly around 51 of them still open.
It's 4 a.m. and the first class of 2014 has arrived at the Miami-Dade County Boot Camp. There are 38 cadets on the bus, ranging in age from 16 to 24. They have all pled guilty to a myriad of crimes and face sentences of up to 15 years in prison.
State-run boot camps.
Sentences of up to 15 years in prison.
State-run boot camps were banned in Florida on the 1st of June in 2006 through legislation signed by Florida Governor Jeb Bush. Now let's see if there's any news on the. Let's see if we've got any news grabs on the Jeb Bush. Florida boot camp ban. What's this? Navy veteran? No. Killer boot camp, house of pain? No. Juvenile boot camp. What's this? You might not be able to use this one. Let's look. It's that one there. That's Vice, can't use that. Jeez, this internet. Slow as mofo.
It starts with a bang. Organized chaos ensues.
Yeah, this sounds like a news report. That should be fine.
It starts with a bang. Organized chaos ensues. Follow instructions. It starts with a bang. Organized chaos ensues. Follow instructions or...
Down! Up! Down! Up!
We follow a military model.
It's a challenge.
We demand and will instill respect.
We're not going to take you out on a date. I don't care if you think we're cute.
This summer camp is not meant to be fun.
I feel like you're in trouble a little bit.
Everything you say, yes sir, no sir.
No, this is not a prison one. Oh, no, that's no good. We might not have much luck here. Most of these seem to be documentaries of sort. Georgia Stories. What's the name of this youngster who ended up dying? Let's see if we can find anything on him.
14-year-old Martin Lee Anderson.
Martin Lee Anderson. Let's have a look. Martin Lee Anderson. There we go. Oh, I've searched that already. Obviously not, then I'm assuming. The community celebrating what would have been Martin Lee Anderson's 30th birthday. We might be able to use this. Is this the Martin Lee Anderson that we need? So this again, takes a long time, but it's well worth it.
This is a custom sticker, and this is a custom label. Both are printed on vinyl and have a...
Many gathered today to celebrate the life of Martin Lee Anderson on what would have been his 30th birthday. Earlier this month, many gathered to celebrate the 15th anniversary of his death. Also, News 13's Alexia Taropoulos tells us why this week was so special to those that were close to Anderson.
It's not a good feeling, you know, standing over your son when you know your son should be standing over you.
Gina Williams is Martin Lee Anderson's mother. She says it has taken time to have strength once again, knowing her son is dead.
As of a mother, you know, the pain doesn't go away, you know, but strength do grow.
Anderson was just 14 when he lost his life back in 2006. He was at the Bay County 14 when he lost his life back in 2006. He was at the Bay County
Internet, you little bitch. It makes your life so much harder when it's slow.
Sheriff's Juvenile Boot Camp, where he was told to do a mile run. While he was running, he alerted drill officers saying that he was feeling fatigued and couldn't go on. But Anderson's family say those drill officers continued to force him. He had collapsed and was taken to the hospital, where he later on died.
Love, courage, strength.
His mother says this is what her and her family...
Okay, and that's all we need.
Boot Camp. Sheriff's Juvenile... Sheriff's Juvenile...
It makes your life so much harder.
Was at the Bay County...
Let's put this together.
At the Bay County Sheriff's Juvenile Boot Camp. 14 when he lost his life. 14 when he was at the Bay County 2006. Anderson was just 14 when he lost his life. He was at the Bay County when he lost his life back in 2006. He was at the Bay County Sheriff's Juvenile Boot Camp, where he was told to do a mile run. Anderson was just 14 when he lost his life.
Okay, let's get this.
Anderson was just 14 when he lost his life back in 2006. He was at the Bay County Sheriff's Juvenile Boot Camp, where he was told to do a mile run. While he was running, he alerted drill officers saying that he was feeling fatigued and couldn't go on. But Anderson's family say those drill officers continued to force him. He had collapsed and couldn't go on. He had collapsed and was taken to the hospital, where he later on died.
Love.
Later on died.
Might be wondering why I took that out. I'm just trying to shorten
where
it a
he
bit.
later on died. Anderson was...
Because I give all the details of the situation, so we don't really need to repeat it too much. Died while in a boot camp.
Anderson was just 14 when he lost his life back in 2006. He was at the Bay County Sheriff's Juvenile Boot Camp, where he was told to do a mile run.
Anderson died as drill instructors beat him and encouraged him to continue physical exercise after he had collapsed. While he was unconscious, guards placed ammonia tablets near his nose. So again, that's not necessary. You might go, well, that's not necessary. It just gives it something different. Somebody switch the ears. So it's not really adding much. It's not in the way of like information. It's just a bit of actuality, just some news audio to support what I'm saying, and just changes it up. So it's not just me talking nonstop, because that would just do my head in, and everybody else's. Died while in a boot camp.
Anderson was just 14 when he lost his life back in 2006. He was at the Bay County Sheriff's Juvenile Boot Camp, where he was told to do a mile run.
Anderson died as drill instructors beat him and encouraged him to continue physical exercise after he had collapsed. While he was unconscious, guards placed ammonia tablets near his nose in an attempt to revive him, and he suffocated. And he suffocated. We'll leave a gap there. Let that sink in there. Anderson attended Bay County Boot Camp in Panama City, Florida. The Victoria Forge Military Academy in Florida has come under intense scrutiny of its methods, which border on physical abuse. The camp's defense is that the parents had signed a contract authorizing the use of physical force against their children. Although extremely tough environments, Sean says he actually appreciated it. Okay, great. Let's chop there. Sean talking. I may keep that music running all the way under what Sean says, depending on how long it goes for. And how did you find the boot camp?
They, actually, like, they give you, like, a list of programs that you could be recommended, the classification. So they recommend year and a half, go home within 6 months. I'm like, yo, sign me up, whatever. They give you, like, a list of programs that you could, so they recommended if you want to go there. My mindset was like, where can I?
Okay, let's just insert. I want to use this grab, but I might not use it in this particular. I might go back.
Oh, they recommended if you want to go there. My mindset was like, where can I go to get me home quicker? Like, you go to these other residential programs, you might be there for a year, year and a half. I'm like, the boot camp, they said if you go to the boot camp, you guaranteed to go home within 6 months. I'm like, yo, sign me up. Whatever I got to do, I want to go home.
Okay, right. I'm going to use that, but not in this part. I'm going to go back. But for now, let's stick here. Did you like the discipline? Were you against it? How did you go?
I appreciate it. I say that's one of the times like a transitioning part for me right there. I definitely say that.
Okay, so let's grab this bit.
I appreciate it. I say that.
Okay, let's chuck this piece in. Though extremely tough environments, Sean says he actually appreciated it.
I appreciate it. I say that's one of the times in my life I appreciate it because it made me think.
Okay, I'm going to fix this. Sean says, because I say he appreciated it. They said, I appreciate it. He actually appreciated it.
I appreciate it. I say that's one of the.
Appreciated it.
I say that's one of the times in my life I appreciate it because it made me think. And like you do like a lot of team building stuff that they do in the Army and all that stuff. So doing that process and just talking to the people that was overseeing it because
okay, so all I'm doing here is just extending this bed so it will play out all the way to the end of what he's saying.
I did like a little drill thing and I actually became like the head person to run the boot camp from our side that was there. So like now everything was on me as a leader, like, yo, if you mess up or somebody mess up in one of these platoons, like you the one that gotta bear that. So now it's like we had to band together in the same situation. So I actually appreciate it, like just having conversations of what they learned through their experiences being in the military. So that right there was just something I was grateful for because it started instilling other things into me. Like, okay, I know I didn't grow up like this, but it's more to life than what I know through experience. So that was part of like a transitioning part for me right there. I definitely say that.
Okay, that works. And that's all we have time for. That's not going to be all we got time for. We can still fill in a bit more than that. So we're going to extend that. That's all I had written for this particular episode. But because we've chopped out so much and we've trimmed it right down, obviously this episode is now 20 minutes, which is fine. It could be fine. But I've got to see if I can get a little bit extra in here so that when we come back, we can go straight to his situation. And we've done episode 1 is fully covered his young years and all the rest of it. And then we'll go from there. So, but I do have that piece of audio that I wanted, didn't I? That I'll quickly grab.
So they recommended if you want to go there. My mindset was like,
okay, so I'm just going to put, sometimes I'll do that. I'll find bits that I didn't know I had. And, that would actually fit nice back there. In 1995, the U.S. federal government.
So that's why we went through the boot camp phase.
The first boot camps appeared in the states of Georgia and Oklahoma around 1983. Boot camps are intended to be less restrictive than prison, but harsher than probation. In most US states, participation in boot camp programs is offered to young first-time offenders in the place of prison terms or probation. In some states, a youth can also be sentenced to prison terms or probation. Okay, so I might get rid of that bit. In the place of prison terms or probation.
So they recommended if you want to go there. My mindset was like, where want to go there? My mindset was go there. My mind. My mindset was
probation.
My mindset.
Probation.
My mindset was like, where can I go to get me home quicker. Like, you go to these other residential programs, you
The
might...
time. See if this works if I trim this down a bit.
And they said, if you go to the... Where can I go to get me home
Got rid of too much.
quicker? The boot camp, they said, if you go to the boot camp, you guaranteed to go home within 6 months. I'm like, yo, sign me up. Whatever I got to do, I want to go home.
The time served can range from 90 to 180 days, which can make up for prison sentence. Oh, okay. Now I've realised that I need to put this bit actually here, because that makes more sense. Prison terms, or probation. The time served can range from 90 to 180 days, which can make up for prison sentences of up to 10 years.
My mindset was like, where can I go to get me home quicker? The boot camp, they said, if you go to the boot camp, you guaranteed to go home within 6 months. I'm like, yo, sign me up. Whatever I got to do, I want to go home.
In 1995, the US federal government and about 2/3 of the 50 states were operating boot camps. Presently, however, there are no statistics as to how many of these boot camps are operating in the US, although in the year 2000, there was reportedly around 51 of them still open.
It's 4 a.m. and the first class of 2014 has arrived at the Miami-Dade County Boot Camp. There are 38 cadets on the bus, ranging in age from 16 to 24. They have all pled guilty to a myriad of...
State-run boot camps were banned in Florida on the 1st of June in 2006 through legislation signed by Florida Governor Jeb Bush after 14-year-old Anderson died while in a boot camp.
Anderson was just 14 when he boot camp, where he was told to do a mile run.
Anderson died as drill instructors beat him and encouraged to revive him, and he suffocated. Okay, so that works now. Anderson attended Bay County Boot Camp in Panama. Oh, and that's all.
I definitely see that.
Cool. All right, there we go. So we've had that little section in there. I'll just put a fade on that because we don't need the whole thing. Again, it's just to add a bit of color. It's not to add any more detail that I'm already talking about. And we...
Well, that was part of like a transition part for me right there.
Ended on
definitely see that.
And then I'll just basically go through and I'll do what I've done there and maybe just add on another 5 to 10 minutes if it's warranted. And that'll be an episode. Okay. So just so you can see how I finished this particular episode off here. Obviously, we finished with this part.
I definitely see that.
And then he and I... So after that 6 months, would you say that have a little wrap up here where we're discussing if that had any effect on his life, him coming back out. He talks about coming back out and how his life basically went back to normal because he went back to the same environment. And then that part of that call just naturally wrapped up because we got interrupted by the phone system saying, that's it, time up. And I used that as my way of ending the episode. I think it's a nice way to end the episode because it kind of feels like people are on the call with us as it ends.
What happened to me, regardless of what aspirations...
You have 1 minute remaining.
...that I was making progress to.
Are we going to get cut off? Are you able to give me another call back?
No, I'm not going to make... I got to give them the phone.
No, that's right.
Let me know when the next...
So again, using that fade technique. And then, and that's all we have time for. And then putting in the teasers on the end. Coming up, Sean's dangerous lifestyle suddenly hits a little too close to home.
Somebody came and shot up my mother's house, my father's house. And one of the bullets actually hit me in the middle of my head. Ricocheted through the window, came in, hit me in my head.
And he and I have a serious discussion around guns and his decision to carry one. I mean, I come from a country where this sort of thing doesn't really happen that often. We don't have the gun situation that America does. And, you know, I think a lot of people listening to this not in America would just hear you say, you know, we got into one argument, he shot at me, I shot back, and then we got into another argument and shooting started again. I mean, it sounds very much like the Wild West. Next time on 1 minute remaining. And that is an episode, even though it's only 22 minutes long, and that freaks me out, but it shouldn't, because the one biggest complaint I get for my show, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, is that the episodes, can we have longer episodes? You know, 40-minute, an hour-long episodes. Which is great. I want people to complain that they're loving it so much that they're frustrated when it ends. Because there's nothing wrong with that, because it means they'll come back. I've never known anyone to stop listening to a show that they really loved, but were annoyed because it wasn't long enough. So they went, I'm not listening to that show anymore. It's not long enough. But I love it. It's fantastic. I'm frustrated because it just ends. They will come back. You want less is more, less is more, less is more. Okay? So never panic about it not being long enough. I would always panic about it being too long. Okay, so if you've got episodes that are running, I mean, yes, Joe Rogan does 2.5-hour episodes, but find me someone who's ever sat through a 2.5-hour episode of Joe Rogan's in one sitting. I've not known any. I don't know anyone who's got through an entire episode in general, because you listen to it and then you come back and listen to it, and eventually it goes on for so long that you just never finish it. So bite size is better. If your episodes are running 50 minutes to an hour long, just please listen to it with a really objective ear and see if you can trim it down. Maybe it's the best content that's ever been created, then totally, but just really focus on the length and try and not make it too long. But yeah, so that's an episode that will go out in its entirety next week. Any questions? As always, all my details are attached to all of this. Flick them through. And I'll help where I can.